sign on it. I'll have to look.
And it's, the thing is,
Well, there's one right in the middle of the road with Shark Street, painted in the road. On Union.
oh yeah, I'll have to look, I had not seen it.
It got the shark's teeth and a 3-foot letter yield sign painted in the road.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't figure out what we were talking about.
Because I thought maybe we hadn't put the yield sign
Right.
painted in the road.
It was painted.
You don't drive that direction.
Yeah.
It might only be 2-foot letters, but it's.
Oh, it's big. Yeah. I couldn't figure out what she was talking about. Yeah.
Because I've gone, well, maybe we didn't put it in. 'cause I
Good
thought
evening,
that-
everybody. If we could maybe come to order.
Yeah. I know.
Can we please come to order? Thank you. So I want to welcome everybody to this joint committee meeting and thank everybody that was able to attend both online and in person. So this is a joint work session. We had a couple issues come up through our planning commission meetings that were brought up with the way the process works for future updates. So we thought it was very important that we took a step back and actually looked at this section in more detail before we moved it forward. So I'm Jill Rolfe. I am the Community Development Director for Coos County.
Chelsea Schnabel, Planning Administrator for City of Coos Bay.
And then Ralph is stepping in.
I'm Ralph Dunham, Public Works Director for City of North Bend, sitting in for the city planner who is homesick.
Thank you. So just to give you a little bit of a background and overview, I know we've had several reviews, but I thought it would be good just to kind of cover that. So this first phase is to update maps currently used in decision-making. It's to put clear headers and explain the purpose and contents of each of the document sections. Use figures and tables to explain processes and policies. Update references in the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan to state federal laws, regulations, agencies, and processes. Development of comprehensive and consistent list of definitions. Inclusion of many management units in the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan. Capture Coos Bay specific policies in the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan. Clarify joint plan maintenance, plan update, and citizen involvement process, which is what we're talking about today. Integration of Coos Bay Estuary data source into Coos Bay Estuary Management Part 2. So when the consultant put together policy 2 for future processes, there was some wording that was included for co-management that made it very confusing about what co-management actually meant. As planners like to do, we like to be problem solvers. So Chelsea and Derek and I got together and we read this and we said, yeah, I can see how that would be confusing, especially after the Planning Commission made a recommendation. So we set to provide a clear process for future updates. And we took all the comments that we received and we looked at them and we looked at the Planning Commission comments and what the consultant was trying to help us achieve. And we put together a plan process that has 3 different bodies, basically. And if you kind of picture the staff is in the center of these, but they are your strategic group, which is discussed in your 9-member committee. Is your joint steering committee. And your joint steering committee is basically your committee, just as it says, that steers the process. And then you have a citizen advisory group. Your Coos Estuary Citizen Advisory Group is made up of citizens to also help guide in this process. And then you have the technical advisory group, and those are your technical experts that are supposed to be providing us with the data and fact-checking the data and providing guidance in that way. So when we were putting this together, in order to achieve a 9-member committee, there is a highlighted area on page 7. And we need some input on who needs to be the 9th member of that committee. In order to have committees function, you do have to have an odd number of committee members in order, if there's a tie, for a tiebreaker. And staff wasn't very comfortable making that decision, so that's why we're asking our group here today to maybe give us some input and some direction on what might be suitable for that. But we are going to defer that until the end. We're going to come back and ask you this again after we take input. There is another highlighted area where the Coos Bay Joint Steering Committee shall also make recommendations for candidates to be appointed by the Board of Commissioners for the Coos Estuary Citizen Advisory Committee and the Coos Estuary Technical Advisory Committee. So we have 3 different government entities involved. And so we want to make sure that this is what you guys really want to have happen. And so again, this is a recommendation that we would ask for you guys to provide for us to go forward with. And then on page 8, county and city planning staff shall attend the meetings and may request to present staff reports, and then it says notice of meetings shall be given at least, and then we're asking for the number of days that you think is appropriate for those hearings. I think we went with 15. That's typically a number that we would provide, but it's really up to you guys. And then for a quorum, committee meetings shall be a simple majority, which would be 51% of the total members. We're also asking for input on that. In 2.5, we didn't catch this before, but we need to actually make it clear that the applicable portions of the plan are adopted by the cities of North Bend and Coos Bay by reference. They're not actually incorporated totally within your comprehensive plan, but they are referenced in the comprehensive plan. So we're trying to make one document. So the way to do the one document is the county holds the document, but the city's reference to it. So that was just an oversight that we missed in the original. And then just for some background, I gave you guys what the Special District Cooperative Agreement that was originally referenced was all about. And I gave you, before this document came into play, that there was an advisory committee that no longer exists, and what that makeup of that advisory committee looked like, so that it can provide you some guidance maybe going forward. And that is really all I have, but if you have questions, I'd like to open those for you now, and then, again, we'll have a discussion after testimony.
So we will take public comment, is that correct?
We are going to take public comment,
Great, thank you.
but I wanted to make sure everything was clear for you guys first before we started to take any comments. Okay, do we have a sign-in sheet?
Yep, we have a sign-in sheet.
Okay. So in taking public comment, if we could try to, if you have points that have been brought up, maybe endorse rather than repeat, just for saving time, but if you feel like it's still a valid point, you want to repeat it, it's really up to you. Typically, we try to stay within the 3 to 5 minute time limit, just so that we can get through everybody. And we have Annie Merrill as the first person.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Annie Merrill. I'm the Land Use Coordinator speaking on behalf of Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition. We are a nonprofit whose address is in Coos Bay, and we have around 100 members in the Coos County area. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan Amendment. We are pleased to see all 3 local governments come together to align this adoption process and address concerns raised by Oregon Shores and many community members you see today. This update was badly needed, and it's an important initial step to modernize the CBEMP. We applaud the diligent work on the part of the planning team to begin this process, and we support the adoption of the Phase 1 draft. The rewrite of sections 2.1 and 2.4 included in the staff report are also an immense improvement to the plan language. We support this rewrite, which clarifies the roles of the cities and county, the Port of Coos Bay, and includes representation from both tribes on all 3 committees. And it clearly outlines the roles and composition of the Citizen Advisory and Technical Advisory Committees to guide future updates. Our one remaining concern in this language is that NGOs, community groups, and environmental organizations are not listed as key stakeholders to include in the Citizen Advisory Committee. There are 4 reasons that they should be included. Local nonprofit and community organizations interact daily with members of the public and have a pulse on relevant community concerns. They often have members and volunteers that actively support their mission, so their very existence represents an important community need. Organizations like Rogue Climate, League of Women Voters, and Oregon Shores actively disseminate information to the community and engage the public in land use planning. Number 4, human health and the health of the environment are inseparable, and all the work that environmental organizations do directly benefit the health and well-being of the entire community. So if the goal of the Citizen Advisory Committee is to support citizen engagement in estuary planning and ensure that the plan is reflective of the diverse needs of the community, including NGOs, community groups, and environmental organizations, is essential to this mission. We ask that you please add this category to the Citizen Advisory Committee stakeholder list for future plan updates. Furthermore, although the committees outlined in the new language are an appropriate baseline for informing minor plan amendments, we recommend allowing broader participation in comprehensive updates of the CBEMP, such as the Phase 2 update that's needed. As you can see from all the comments received and public participation in this Phase 1 process, there's broad interest in the CBEMP from the community, and expanding the members of the Citizen Advisory Committee will ensure these interested parties have a voice in the planning process. The last thing I'll say is that a more comprehensive Phase 2 update of the CBEMP is still urgently needed to address future challenges and prepare for the impacts of climate change. We are in strong support of the city's resolutions that were drafted to commit to pursuing a Phase 2 update and seek funds to continue the planning process after this first amendment is adopted. We urge that Coos County align with the same resolution to coordinate this effort and commitment with all 3 jurisdictions. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for addressing our concerns. We look forward to engaging in Phase 2.
Did you have a written document you wanted to turn in? Thank you. Okay, next on the list, we have Mike Graybill.
Good evening. My name's Mike Graybill. I live in Charleston. I'm in support of the revisions that are proposed for sections 2.1 and 2.4, but I seek some clarification on the language that's in section 2.5, and that has to do with these special district agreements that are ancillary but related to the actual main body of the plan. Section 2.4, of course, is the section that really articulates these advisory groups and provides clarity for how those advisory groups will be structured. And I support that language. Yet when you look at these pre-existing agreements with the special districts, there's reference to yet an additional technical review committee on page 2 of that special district agreement. Under this little -2 section, it talks about a technical review committee that reviews land development proposals, is the asterisk at the bottom of the page. Well, Jill made reference to the fact that there was another action taken, which is also included here, which is the 1994 document that deletes all reference to the Coos Bay Estuary Advisory Commission. Well, this is a technical document, so I would not presume that the Coos Bay Estuary Advisory Commission is the same thing as the Technical Review Committee. And so my question for clarification is, or I would recommend that there would be clarification given if you're going to adopt the structure as proposed in section 2.4 of the plan, if you're going to adopt that advisory group structure, that should clarify what the adoption of that means for these other, particularly this technical review committee that's part of the special district cooperative agreement with the port.
So these are two different special agreements. This was the 1982 one that went away in 1991 when the amendment happened. This doesn't exist anymore.
Which doesn't exist.
The one that says Coos Bay Estuary Shoreline Joint Management Agreement, and it says A2 at the bottom.
I was not making reference to that document.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused what.
Okay, I was making reference to the document that is the Special District Cooperative Agreement adopted February 8, 1991, which is the
Right.
first one of those scanned documents.
Okay,
And on the second page of that, makes reference to a technical review committee in that first paragraph, which is got an asterisk and that is defined down at the bottom of that page. It said this is a county committee that reviews land development proposals.
right. So citizen advisory is, in our comprehensive plan, we have a citizen advisory group. It's not specific to the estuary plan, it's overall for all text amendments. So when they took out this agreement,
Which agreement?
This
The one that
agreement.
has the little yellow
Yep.
dots?
they added in this note to refer to the general advisory group that reviews all amendments under the citizen involvement plan.
Okay, well then I'll just leave my comment to say
So-
there appears to be some ambiguity and some lack of cross-referencing at least regarding how citizen input and how technical input's going to be received when it's time to make adjustments to the plan.
Okay,
If I make a point, it appears the technical review committee is to residential land development, is what it's subdivisions, partitions, and planned communities.
Correct.
It's not overall development, it's specific to residential development, it appears.
correct.
And I'm sorry, it just looks,
I think we could put a sentence in to fix it. Okay. Ashley, you are next. Yeah, okay, there you go. I was like, you disappeared.
I knocked over my water bottle and wasn't picking it up.
Just how timing works out.
Okay.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Isn't it great that all three jurisdictions are in the same room? Thank you so much to the planners for coordinating that. We know that this has been a long, ongoing effort. So, yeah, really appreciate everybody's cooperation here. Well, my name is Ashley Dickey. I work with Road Climate, which is a climate justice organization with an office here in downtown Coos Bay, luckily. And we're here to, started talking. And where am I at? We've been participating in the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan process since earlier this year because we believe that this is a key critical step for our community for planning for the mitigation and adaptations of climate change impacts in this community and protection of one of Oregon's largest estuaries and foundation of the community's economic development and cultural practices. We've been working with a lot of community members, as you see here today, that, are just, we're very fortunate to be able to continue to participate in this process. So, and with that ongoing participation comes to the development of these community advisory committees, technical advisory committees, and ad hoc steering committees. When initially announced, these committees did not necessarily reflect, in our opinion, some of the users and dependents that really depend on a healthy, thriving estuary. With the current proposal, there is an inclusion, but not limited to, stakeholders that include maritime, fishing, recreation, and so many more. One thing that we do notice on that community member list is exclusion of members that may have a background in conservation, environmental, or general community groups just to add to that depth of stakeholders that may be included. And also moving forward with these committees, we encourage widespread communication about opportunities for this community involvement, such as the appointment of the various committees, community members to these committees. The staff report has so many great details that I wasn't expecting to see about these different committees. But one detail that, that I see that's missing is just that how these committee meetings will be shared publicly. We strongly encourage that these committee meetings, minutes, agendas, materials, and so much more are accessible to the public, so then we know what's going on within those ongoing processes. So I'm not sure if that would be most appropriate on the Coos County website. Basically, wherever the home base is for the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, just strongly encourage widespread transparency about what is going on with these committees, and just make sure that that folks know when there is opportunities to apply and to participate. During previous hearings, Coos County and subsequently North Bend Planning Commissions decided to remove the Port of Coos Bay as a co-manager of the Estuary Management Plan to reinforce the port has no regulatory authority to be a co-manager, especially with no clear definition of what co-management actually means. We do appreciate the shifts in language in section 2.5, but yet there's still one concern that's still missing here. One deep concern is that while the port's getting removed from co-management, that the tribes, including the Coquel Indian Tribe and the Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians were removed. Tribal governments are not stakeholders like the Port of Coos Bay. Tribal governments and the representatives must be acknowledged as sovereign nations in legislative land use planning, generally and especially in estuary planning. The county and cities must adopt policies and binding agreements with the tribes to provide meaningful consultation regarding any plan amendments and any development activities or applications. With the current policy moving forward, tribes may be excluded from appropriate consultation regarding the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, especially the estuary's unique natural and cultural resources. In a previous joint letter, Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition and Road Climate submitted suggested language for adopted changes in section 1.6 and Baywide Policy number 18. Those changes are intended to ensure sufficient coordination and consultation with both tribal governments in the long-term implementation of the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan. We also understand that that's not included necessarily in the report here tonight, because that language did not come from the tribal governments directly. This is a concern because, in our viewpoint, there may be a lack of consultation currently and a lack of engagement in pertains to the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan jurisdictional governments and the planning departments with the respective tribal governments and their natural resources department staff that would be the folks to coordinate with. So. And lastly, we are happy to see that there has been some resolutions moving forward for a commitment to a phase 2. But one thing that is missing in that, which I believe is not necessarily in the report tonight, but has been part of previous meetings, is a time-bound commitment, just to bring reassurance to community members that are concerned that a phase 2 update may happen way too far down the road when, let's just say, climate change is happening now. Things are happening in this community now, and we can't wait any longer to address those issues that are needed. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Ashley, did you have a letter you want to give to me, or you can?
I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is it Bonetti? Ken Bonetti, and I apologize if I mispronounced that.
You got the pronunciation right.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. It's great to see everyone together here, and thank you for seriously considering this very important update for the CBEMP. I previous speakers have expressed most of my concerns, all my concerns actually, and very articulately, very professionally, and I completely agree with those statements and support their recommendations, so I appreciate that. As far as the Phase 2 update, I think it's really important to move forward with that very quickly. As Ashley mentioned, there's climate change and also many proposals for use of the bay and its estuaries that may have big impacts on those. And I would urge you all to seek appropriate funding as soon as possible, even designating somebody to write the grants to get that funding together and proceed on to the phase 2. I come from an area, I'm a relatively recent resident here. I came here 2 years ago from the Front Range of Colorado, Boulder, Colorado to be specific. And there in Colorado, there's not the land use planning legacy that exists here in Oregon. There's not much of a legacy at all for that there. And we had off the Front Range, we have what one would call a sea of grasslands that exist from the edge of the mountains out to the Appalachians. But in our area, those grasslands, there was no planning, there was no consultation, and the oil and gas industry took control of those lands and developed a whole industry. We refer to it as fracking, which is the pumping of high pressure water into fissures in the slate in the layered organic fossil fuel formations there to extract oil. And the result has been disastrous for the landscape, for the groundwater, and for the air. The reason why we are here is because of fracking. I grew up in Colorado. I was educated at the University of Colorado and Colorado State University. I worked at both those institutions for my entire career. And then when it came to the point of retirement, we had to leave because the air was so polluted. So I really urge you to take this plan seriously, to implement the strongest policies you can to preserve and restore, rehabilitate what is a wonderful, beautiful natural resource that has great potential not only to our community but for the entire state and country. So thank you again for this opportunity to speak, and I wish you the best of luck in getting that funding for the Phase 2 update.
Thank you. Beverly Segner, you're next.
Hi, good evening. What I feel like saying is, hey, the gang's all here, and it's wonderful to see. Thank you so much. I won't take long because many of you have heard my comments about this, and I'm so excited that you're all coming together, and hopefully we'll move forward not only with approving this plan, but also, of course, making a commitment to Phase 2, which is really important. And I'm really pleased to see so many of the comments that have been made incorporated into the proposal before you. I just want to say that I do think it's kind of a good idea to have a conservation group as part of the Citizen Advisory Committee. I hadn't noted that, and I thought, oh, that makes sense. And also a structure and process for notifying the public about the meetings of the advisory committees. And, you know, the whole sovereign nation thing, I think that's pretty important, and that we really need to that should be addressed directly. And so I thank you.
Thank you. Donna Benetti?
My name is Donna Benetti. I lived in North Bend. The first thing I want to speak to is I think it's really important that the tribes are very involved in this. For thousands of years, they managed this land, and it was rich and abundant. There were clams and fish, salmon, crabs. The water was clean. The environment flourished. That is the true wealth of this land. And a lot of it has been downgraded and needs to be restored. So we need tribal involvement for that. And the scientific community is also very important for that, and the conservation groups. All the meetings should be of public record so that everybody can know what's going on. And I would like to see the salmon back, rich clam beds, eelgrass. I would like to see tourism here because people are coming to fish and getting them, and people who live here are having a salmon dinner because somebody went fishing after work. There is so much that can be done to improve this bay, and it's also very critical that you take a look at what's happening with climate change. I worked for the National Center for Atmospheric Research for a few years back, and climate change is real, and it's happening faster than the scientists have even predicted. And so it really is an emergency that needs to be addressed, and managing the estuary is part of that. And I hope you take this seriously and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Faraday?
Good evening. You have my written records. All three of the jurisdictions have it, and they basically say go forth with the second phase, not just the digital update first phase. And also assist in creating a comprehensive, you've heard it before about the comprehensive advisory committees and technical committees. I think those are very important. And I think your task should be fairly simple because of what you've heard and agree to go with a full second phase. What's not so simple is the task of actually performing the revision, obviously. But that can be done with the talented work in the coastal community. The talent is here. And some of you've heard from. Oregon Shores and is one of them that I have been a member of for many years when I first moved here. And the Coos Estuary, like most estuaries, are complex ecosystems, and which we rely on. And within the last 40 years, we've learned a lot more. Ecology, the study of physical and biological systems and how they relate to one another, is one of the most difficult sciences there is. Rocket science is child's play in comparison. That's why it's so difficult to understand how to manage an estuary or be the stewards, really. But fortunately, we have that expertise here in this community and up and down the coast and elsewhere, such as the first estuarine research reserve in the United States was started here. They have all sorts of information that would help with this revision. U of O's Institute of Marine Biology, they are here too. They're in our backyard and on the water. The Coos Watershed Association is a newcomer, 20 years old, I think. Oh, no, it's coming up on 30, I believe. And of course, the original land managers, the Coquille and the Confederated Tribes, who haven't been heard enough in this regard. and many others I won't go into. But when I first came here, I moved from Idaho in the 70s. I didn't know what an estuary was, and it took me teaching 7th graders biology in the school district to learn what an estuary was. And fortunately, we were about a half a mile from one of the last remaining salt marshes in the Upper Bay. And we would go out there whenever we had a chance, because it's one of the most richest places to learn biology, and we walked across acres of dredge material, fill, 15 to 20 feet thick. Here it's not quite as thick, but we're still on fill. And I know you know that there's consequences when you're built on fill. We had to move a fire station. We're in the process of considering what to do with the library. So we've learned a lot in the last several years. And so the Coos Estuary is important to us all, and it deserves the best owner's manual, if you will. If you go to a GP or a surgeon, you want to make sure that they're using the most up-to-date information before they deal with the ecosystem of your body. So that's it, and you wouldn't want to use 40-year-old information to do so. So that's why I'm suggesting very vehemently that this needs to go to a second phase with an advisory committee and a technical committee to get the best thing we can use for stewardship of this important place. Thank you.
Thank you. Crystal Shoji, you're next.
Thank you for having this meeting with all these people here, and this is great. Just a little background. I was the coordinator for the first estuary plan, working on as the coordinator from 1978 through 1983 until we got all the special district agreements done and the estuary plans, this one and the Coquille River estuary plan done. And of course, it was a huge undertaking, and the planning department was in charge of getting the text and everything done, and there was a lot of community involvement. Meetings going till 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, with people actually drawing on maps of what they wanted to see. And it's been a really, the whole process has been a wonderful community thing for years. Oregon communities, I think, are closer because they have these processes. The one thing that I wanted to address was in the first summary of the proposal, it talks about, it's on the first page, just the second sentence there. It talks about legislative plan map and text amendments. And I would like to share that this is kind of written like those are coming from the jurisdictions, and I'm not sure it explains. I've also been a private planner for 27 years and have submitted some plans on behalf of private citizens to do things on their property, which have involved coordinating all the jurisdictions, or at least we tried to do that, and making sure that the numbers that were required for different things fit together and things like that, and that everybody had the same text amendments. And it didn't always work great because some jurisdictions didn't want to do it, mainly the one right here. Because North Bend always changed theirs, I think, to agree with the county, and the county is basically in charge. I mean, they have to be by law. So what I don't understand in the proposal is it makes it sort of acts like legislative is something that belongs to the jurisdictions, but it doesn't really explain how private citizens' text amendment can be incorporated into the system. And that concerns me because it's not always coming from the jurisdiction. It will come to you from citizens, and citizens are permitted to do text amendments. They just have to work harder and include more information and spend a lot more time. Citizens are permitted to do legislative plan map changes, and of course they would do those through their jurisdictions. But I don't understand when the process starts and how it coordinates. It seems like there should be some kind of a diagram or something that shows, and you're probably already doing one, or there maybe already is one, but I would like to see it. I don't understand how the advisory committee meets, how the time frame of, you're supposed to choose a time frame on page 8 at the top. It talks about 15 days, and when does that come in? You know, do they start with the jurisdiction, and then before anybody even knows anything, then they have to make an advisory decision? I don't know. I don't feel it's clear, and I'd be happy to hear it explained. I'm sure that I'm not the only smart one in the room that notices this, but.
So on page 6, there's a paragraph right above 2.4.1, and it says it's important to note the committee shall not handle applications submitted by property owners or their representatives for conditional uses or rezones of private property, as public participation during the plan implementation is often limited by strict timelines, procedures, rules related to legal standing, notices, and appeals. So you're probably right, there isn't a section that actually handles those.
Well,
separately.
how do they get coordinated when they change the plan, and how do these committees get involved?
I agree. I mean, we did actually talk about that, and Chelsea asked me, shouldn't we do a graphic? And I said, yes, we should, but I couldn't do the graphic.
But you're
So,
saying that you think you have it worked out, even if we don't see a graphic?
we think we have it worked out, but we need
But you're not telling us.
answers. No, we need answers to the highlighted questions before I can really draw it
I
out.
understand.
So,
But it will incorporate, so that the whole thing
Yeah.
will be coordinated no matter who's bringing it forward,
So-
correct?
I think I have that.
Sorry about getting
Nope.
technical, but these things
So,
are huge things.
There was an original graphic.
Yes.
I think you did it.
It kind of looks like I might have been at that time.
And we plan to fix it so that it shows you after we get the comments back.
Okay.
So, it'll
Because,
go
I
in the
mean,
hearing.
legislative sounds clear, but it's not, because if it's one
yeah.
property, it could be more of a quasi judicial.
Right.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. All right, take care of it.
I completely understand that's completely valid.
Thank you.
Sorry, we were having planner talk, and you're probably looking at me like, so there's different processes, right? So there is quasi-judicial processes, there's legislative processes, and sometimes when planners write things, we have a planner brain. We don't have a client, somebody using the document brain. So what Crystal brought up is very valid. The idea of having major and minor updates and a plan for those is different than having somebody submit a single application. And so she's right, we need to have that section in there that says, if you submit a single application, this is your process.
So will that be done before, will that come out so that we can see it?
Yes. We're not done, yes.
So Jill,
No.
We're not approving anything tonight, we're just asking for some guidance so we know where to go.
so Jill, you'll be handling that aspect of it and incorporating it in? And
Yes.
then it'll come back again to us, or how's that gonna work?
We're gonna talk about the end of the
Okay.
session, thank you. Who do we have to? Dana, Gob? Sorry. Oh, you're behind there, I didn't see you.
Dana Gobb. Hey, I've had a North Bend or a Coos Bay address since 1974. There's been a lot of changes that have happened in those almost 50 years. Some of them good, some of them not so good. A couple of them that I think are good is, interestingly, the population of Coos County is nearly the same given 1,000 or two possibly. And another is that we don't reside along an interstate highway. That said, it leads me to a number of years ago, Sunset Magazine chose Coos Bay as the second most desirable community in the Pacific Northwest. And they mentioned some of the things that were going on here. The History Museum was brand new at the time. Coos Bay Village hadn't gotten started. They mentioned the grading of the Tioga and the Egyptian. And they mentioned that brewery down the road here, Seven Devils. But you know, one other thing that they didn't, a couple things they didn't mention. They didn't mention what Coos Bay had been proposed for Coos Bay, and it didn't happen. And I'm talking about pulp mills and steel mills and liquefied natural gas. What I'd like to go is with a little economic development and how it relates to our bay. Councilwoman DeNovo last night gave a presentation for the League of Women Voters on tourism, and its value to the community and the not only the money that it comes in, but the numbers of people that it employs. And that said, I'd like to say that another plus that we have is that our estuary is probably the most valuable resource we have here. I'd like to encourage us to go as far as we can to take care of it as well as we can. It was back in the 70s, the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act were instituted. And along with those being instituted, they were supposed to keep up with the current scientific information available. Well, I don't think that that's worked out entirely well, but it can work entirely well for this Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan when it was first started in the mid-70s, and not too many updates to it since then, but let's use modern science and update it as much and as far as we can, and continue to do that as the scientific information becomes available. So thank you. Pleasant evening. Crystal, I wanted to say one thing. From the Sustainable Design Assessment Team, citizen input is unpredictable, but always leads to good places. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Moffett, you're next.
Well, it is a pleasure to have everyone here, and thank you all for spending your time on this important issue.
I'm not going to give you a section to respond to. I guess I'm responding to a little more than what was in the highlighted document that I reviewed. I support strongly the effort to provide additional clarification of the process and the interests in design, designating for citizen and technical support for decisions, but caution that these categories and everything should be considered very carefully, and the members should be considered to function independently within these teams. The current outline, I think, is way too prescriptive in the language that uses shall consist of, should not be used. Comprehensive plans are vital for land use decisions, and they require an open, transparent process. And the difficulty to make that happen is relying on the citizens and the stakeholders. I'm also highlighting the co-authored report by Schmidt and Rolfe in 2019, Community Planning, a Lesson Learned Guide to Revising Land Use Plans. And I'm going to quote from that because you mention in that a suite of interests for community engagement is really important, and team members who are not vested in one outcome should be selected. They should be impartial and understand this is a community-wide project. And I think when you go too prescriptive, you're putting categories, and I think that's very dangerous. I'm going to comment just briefly on the three committees. The Citizen Advisory Committee, it should include a wide range of interests, and certainly recreation and tourism, social services, community organizations with environmental or other focuses such as Equity Coalition, the business community, and certainly tribal representation. The Technical Advisory Committee, the need for expertise in areas in addition to estuarine ecology and geography. I would suggest expertise in socioeconomics and community and cultural development. I think this suggested membership should include expertise and information from ongoing monitoring and modeling of local conditions. And these could be academic researchers, agency researchers, and managers. And then my comments on the Joint Committee, having an elected official from each jurisdiction may not be possible, but someone duly delegated as appointed by that may be a better way to go. And that model is actually proposed for positions such as the Port of Coos Bay tribal representatives. And so I'm cautioning on making it so prescriptive. I think having also the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee and a Technical Advisory Committee, I think I would suggest a representative at large from the county outside of city boundaries would be an important thing in a steering committee as well. And then the final comment I'd like to make is this draft document, and because of the legacy of the last decade of a number of you folks working together, primarily with the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds, you reference this as a conservation organization. The partnership is not a registered conservation organization, and its members and participants represent a suite of entities with current leadership that's provided by staff of the South Slough near. They are DSL employees. So I think there needs to be further clarification on what role and how and what entity can be independent in this process. And I appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Steve Miller.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and thank the many city and county staff, planners, and commissioners and counselors who've been involved in this as well. I agree with so many of the comments made here tonight, and can't add too much. I do especially strongly agree with comments that were made that the committees should have open transparency to the public, and they should welcome the public's input. And I support a prompt beginning of a Phase 2 update as well. A very large part of our economic basis build on travel and recreation spending by visitors to Coos County, totaling over $300 million in 2022. As recorded by Travel Oregon, our state's compiler of economic data for travel and recreation, for the travel and recreation portion of the state economy. Combining visitor and county resident spending on those activities, the total jumped to more than $1.2 billion in 2019 before the impact of COVID. And this occurred without huge federal or state grants and subsidies, but it grew organically on its own. You can measure some of the value citizens in our communities hold for the estuary and its watersheds by the drift boats, kayaks, canoes, and other fishing boats parked in our driveways and side yards. I encourage you to pass a strong joint resolution committing our county, North Bend, and Coos Bay to a Phase 2 update, and a prompt one, which identifies a reasonable process for procuring available funding assistance to do that, and an expected timeline for beginning that work.
When was that information given to them?
The same time that the notice went out to everybody else.
Okay, I would, before, I know this is being reviewed, but those are small departments, and so I feel like nothing can be decided, obviously, until the tribes make comment on this. Jill, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to go back to, or Jamie Faraday for that matter, the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds. There are 3 federally recognized. We are on the ancestral homelands of 3 federally recognized tribes, and there's no mention of the Siletz tribe. And so I'm wondering, I wish my late husband were here so I could ask him that question. Was that ever considered in the work that the PCW brought forth? Jill, do you have
So
any idea?
originally, and I'm going to tell you this dates back a while, so do not quote me on
Nope,
this.
I won't.
So for those of you that aren't aware, I've been involved with Partnership for Coastal Watersheds since 2012. So it has been a long time, and a lot of it was spent trying to figure out how we were going to approach this project and trying to get funding, and there were little pieces. And it did start out with an audit that Coos County paid for out of economic development funds. And that audit was completed by the same contractor that has been working with us. And that audit said, these are the things that we think that you probably should focus on. And then we were able to take that and apply for some additional funding through PCW partnership and through the NERS, the Science Collaborative. And so when we did that, we did first start to reach out to find